Hey guys, welcome to the Get Together. I'm Stacy.
And I am Alyssa.
I'm Nicole.
We have Nicole Sherrick with us today.
Woo woo.
Yeah, I'm here.
She's my sister-in-law, so she's more than just a friend.
Yes.
This is actually take 2 as well. This was the episode that we had recorded and we had all the problems, and so we're finally getting back on track. It's only been like 2 months since we did it.
Yeah, it was
we're like
right
we're gonna
before
have
Christmas.
it next. Yeah, we never
We
did
try
that.
to reschedule, and then one of our kids would be sick.
It was a thing after a
And-
thing.
Yeah.
It's just difficult. I mean, there's a lot going on. You have multiple kids between the three of us, and then families, and then distance, and just
Yeah.
getting the timing right. And you guys are both like business, like you're doing stuff with work. I mean, right? I mean,
I follow my husband around.
right.
I'm
But
like,
then
"Take me
you
with you."
full are on. You're like doing actual jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys are really busy. I mean, I'm busy too, but
Yeah.
it's just everybody looks different. So
Well, and then today we're like setting up and things are falling over, earrings are falling out of faces.
that's
I'm
true.
wearing. Looked down and realized I'm wearing dirty pants. And
Are you?
actually, so I'm sitting in my truck, waiting for y'all to get here, and I look down, and in this hole right here, you see that mark?
Yeah.
I thought there was chocolate on my pants, and then I realized it was a tiny little body. It was a spider body. I put on pants that had a spider in them, killed them with my legs, and have worn his corpse all day.
Killed them with your legs.
Yeah, because putting them on,
killed
it mushed him up into the hole of my pants. But I saw it and it freaked me out. I was like, ah! Like just screamed and was finding napkins to get his little body out of my
He
pants.
rode on. He like dead, like on your leg.
He was probably
here.
just living in my home, like enjoying my pants, and then I killed him in his own home.
Poor guy.
like we're past the time that we should be having like the real dirty clothes, you
Yeah.
know, and the babies. And this one time when I was younger and my kids were way younger, I had this pair of pants that had actually was a bleach stain on it, but they were black, so the bleach stain looked kind of brown. And Larissa, she was probably like only 3 or 4 at that time, and she just automatically assumed it's either poop or chocolate milk based on the stages of life we were in. And I was like, it's neither.
It's actually a
neither,
bleach spot,
actually.
but I remember one time I skipped an entire day of high school. I think I was like a freshman or sophomore, and my mom was dropping me off, and in true teenager fashion, I ate a chocolate chip cookie for breakfast because that's reasonable. And I get out of the car, and she's like, "Oh, hold on, there's chocolate on your butt." Like there was literally like right on the butt cheek area where it would look like something happened. There's chocolate smeared down my pants. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. So she took me home to change. And then I was like, I don't want to go today. Can I stay home? And she was like, yeah. So I stayed home.
All for chocolate
All for chocolate
I
pants.
feel like anytime I eat like a chocolate bar or a chocolate chip cookie, I always get chocolate on my buttocks.
The buttocks.
Buttocks. I remember in school standing in line. So evidently I had sat down in the cafeteria. It was chicken fried steak day. And I got in line and these boys were behind me laughing. And I was like, what in the world? Why are they laughing at me? And then I just happened to like touch behind me and I had sat in mashed potatoes.
Oh,
and I had like
no.
them all over my
Oh my God.
That sucks.
backside.
That's like those dreams you have. You're like in the cafe line. I've had dreams with like, you know, no pants and stuff. And you wake up and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. You know those dreams that people always talk about losing their teeth? I've had my first one in my whole life.
Really?
And it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But it was terrifying. Like, I felt my teeth falling out of my head.
those before.
And it was like, you know how in dreams you're supposed to be yourself, but I could also see myself?
Yeah.
And they were just like coming out in chunks.
Were
and-
you were probably pretty stressed.
Yeah, and maybe
probably.
grinding a little. Like, because I've done
Yeah.
that when I wake up and I'm like in a weird position and my teeth are like clinking together.
Yeah.
And it's like a fear though.
But then I
right?
woke up and I was like, what's going on in my life that I'm dreaming about losing my teeth? I couldn't figure anything out, so we'll just chalk it up to
I feel like
stress.
anxiety. I looked it up once.
Yeah.
And it was something like you don't feel like you have control
Yeah.
over something
That
in
would
your
make
life.
sense.
And
Are you a dream interpreter?
Yes.
You got the book.
I came here today to interpret your dreams.
This is gonna be good.
She pulls out her little drum.
What did you dream last night, Nicole?
I don't remember.
I remember when I dreamed. I feel like I did remember, and then I completely forgot it.
I used to have the most off the wall dreams. I had a dream once that dinosaurs were taking over the world, and it was like apocalyptic. And we were out at my grandparents' farm, and my brother and my cousin were teaching us like all these army tactics and stuff to fight dinosaurs.
In the dream.
In the dream.
Wow, that's really vivid.
And then in the dream, the dinosaurs learned how to drive cars, and we were like, "This is it. They know how to drive now. Like, we're not gonna make it."
oh my
And my
gosh.
nana the whole time in the dream is like, "Y'all want some dinner?" Like sticking her head out.
But you still like remember this dream?
Yeah, that one was one of those really, really vivid ones that I woke up and I was like, "Why was that so vivid and intense?"
Did it
And
happen again though? Did you keep having?
I've had
that same
multiple
dream?
dinosaur dreams, and they're always like end of the world dinosaur dreams.
Yeah, I used to have
weird.
end of the world dreams too. That
Yeah.
sometimes I did think that there was like prophetic stuff to them, so I would just like pray about it because I didn't know.
Yeah,
But yeah, I had dreams like where I would be like in a battlefield, we were being shot at, and I was like protecting my kids.
oh, these are
and
real
stuff.
dreams. Like
Yeah.
dinosaurs are a little less prone to happen.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, come on.
It's 2025.
It is. It is. They could be robotic.
It could be. Oh man, robots now are. Did I send you that video?
I think
There
you
was like
did,
this
yeah.
realistic robot thing, and I was like, "That's a big
I've
nope."
seen several
Ugh.
of them.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah. My kids watch them like chefs like compete with like a robot chef. They love watching that.
Oh,
But I
yeah,
tell them
yeah,
all
yeah.
the time, I'm like, look at it though. It's not a robot chef. Somebody had to prep all the ingredients. All this thing can do is know exactly where they are and where
And
to
where
place them
they're
and how
putting it,
long
yeah.
to cook it
Yeah.
and everything. I'm like, that's not a chef
For now.
for now. I know. I
Until
know.
they're like programmed to think for themselves.
Oh, no,
my
thanks.
gosh, what a time to be alive.
No.
Take me home, Lord.
I used to have dreams of the rapture happening, like especially as a kid, and I'd be like, "Ah, I'm left behind," and like running, and everyone's just like taken up
Floating
into
up.
the sky.
That's all thanks to those artists from like the 1980s and 90s painting us some cryptic creepo
Floating in
pictures.
the
Yeah,
air.
where he's floating and like Jesus is blonde and blue-eyed and
Religion in the 90s was wild.
yeah.
It was pretty
Like,
intense.
There's that Christian comedian that says that if you were a child in the 80s and 90s and you had Christian parents, you guys had the most Christian parents,
Yeah.
and Jesus probably had more fun than you. I remember going and seeing, like, in like our church, like signs that were like, you should not have Cabbage Patch Kids because it's got a signature on
my
it.
gosh.
Like all this
Oh, I
stuff.
do remember
Yes.
that.
Like we were, but I'm so thankful because my mom was a little chill and she was like, no. You can have a Barbie. You're gonna have a baby doll.
Yeah.
You're gonna, have all those
I feel like my
things.
parents
So-
were pretty chill too.
Yeah.
They were strict, but like on a pretty biblical, they were just Bible based. It was not like kooky, weird,
Right. They
you know.
weren't going almost like not cultic.
Yeah.
Right. But almost like it's literally like fads and trends
Yeah.
of like
It really is.
it's fear based. Really, when you look at it, the root of it, it's like so afraid of not getting everything right that you literally, because I've even found myself there in a place like
Yeah.
that mentally, like I'm missing the mark somewhere, or
Right.
I'm not, and it's like, okay, wait a second. If we're supposed to be following the Holy Spirit, like one step at a time, sometimes he'll lead you to something that maybe, oh, it's time for you to put that down or
Yeah.
put it down for a season
Yeah.
or whatever. But it's different than just like chasing the works
Yeah.
for the sake of it.
That was the hardest thing too. Like growing up, youth age, I like looking back on it. I'm like, ugh, like why were people even friends with me? Because I was like your goody two shoes Christian that was like, I was nice to everybody and talked to everybody, but like internally, I was pretty judgmental. And like I would judge other
Okay.
people that weren't Christians, be like, I can't believe they're doing that,
Right.
Yeah.
And like looking back, I'm like, man, if I would have just known that, like, I don't know, growing up and maturing in your walk with the Lord is such a crazy thing because you look back, you're like, man, I sucked.
Yeah, I think but there's phases that you go through, especially depending
When
on
you
your
mature.
upbringing a little bit.
Yeah.
Because what you're feeding off of, like in the pulpit, really, or
Yeah.
what you're around a lot, you're kind of modeling that.
Well, and
to
it
your
was, I
limited
feel like
knowledge.
that old school AG was very like rules. Like we're going to go by the rules. And if you're outside of these rules, you're not super saved. And so it was like, I
Super
grew up
saved.
thinking that like, oh my gosh, if you had a sip of alcohol, you might as well just, you know,
Oh,
you just
yeah.
living in sin, living in sin was so big back then.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know, growing up and realizing that there's a line And it's sometimes the line's different for certain people based on their convictions.
Right. And there are people in different areas, and we're supposed to be sharpening one another and encouraging one another. And
Yeah.
man, I feel like we just dove off a cliff into like the sea of religion chat.
oh, it's a deep
how
one.
we got here.
It's a deep.
The
one.
rapture
hopped right
brought
in
us
there.
here.
Oh my gosh. Let's not go there.
I have a friend that like she's trying to convince me all the time that I have religious trauma. And I'm like, I don't have religious trauma. Like I just grew up pretty strict and I can laugh about it now. I like have really fond memories of my upbringing and my
Yeah, so
it's
do
not
I.
traumatic. There was just certain things that like the rapture, like we were talking about, that's a scary concept for a kid.
Yeah.
So I guess that can be where they're saying it's trauma. Like
It depends on if it
Yeah.
shaped you in any way, where now you're like, oh my gosh. Because I feel like I walked through a little of that and had to talk through and process through. And my husband, he's brought certain topics up to like he had a counselor and and he even then shared it with me and was able to be like, I really feel like some of these things came from that. Like you wouldn't necessarily connect them, but like even like stuff that you would oh gosh, like I don't know, like a boundary that you'd set or a wall you'd put up. Like more like a wall you'd put
that makes
up,
sense.
or an isolation, like, or I don't like being around these kinds of people because they remind me of that. Like I don't even know how to have a relationship now with certain family or whatever, and just because of the conversation topics, you know, because
that makes sense.
I definitely have had a lot of fear because of that. Like you don't want to say the wrong thing, or somebody would like crack a joke and it is funny, but if it seems like slightly sacrilegious, then it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna burn if I laugh, you know, that kind of a thing.
I remember like when I was a kid, my grandpa was the pastor, and I remember him saying specific things that really did freak me out as a kid. And like that was all I thought about. Or I remember hearing if you think about Jesus coming back and that scares you a little bit, you're not ready. Like, and I probably said it differently, but as a kid, I'm like, well, I'm going to hell.
Seriously.
You know, like
if I'm scared, I'm going to hell.
Don't want him to come back. You know, as a kid, you're like, I want to grow up and I want to have kids and I want to get married. And I'm like, well, I'm not ready. So I guess I'm not ready. And that like, that really throughout, like even being a teenager.
Yeah. I guess it could be considered trauma for especially for young kids. Like, I guess what I should say is I don't feel scarred from any of it.
Yes.
But looking back, I do have instances like that where I was too fearful because I was like, I'm not ready because I just don't want to go yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's normal.
Tagging on your, dinosaur dream, like I remember sitting through a sermon that was very similar to that. Like it's like the whole, like if you do this or if you participate in that, whatever, like, so like I went home and dug through my VHS tapes and like threw away like everything.
Burn it all!
Yeah. Oh, and it was like one of them was like Jurassic Park. I was like, I gotta throw it away.
Not Jurassic Park. That's a classic.
I know. I think sometimes what happens is we all have our own filters and life experiences, and we take something that maybe we're personally convicted about or we're convinced of for some reason, and we cast it on everybody. Like I heard one time like a pastor felt like the Lord told him, hey, you need to lay off coffee. Like it's not just like I'm having a cup a day. It's like an obsession and it's bad for your health and I need you to lay off. And he was like literally ready to formulate like a sermon series on like stopping drinking coffee. Wow. And God convicted, it was like, no.
Yeah, that's not what I said.
This is you.
Yeah.
You know? And so it is, that's why being sensitive, I think, or having discernment and knowing, God, is this just for me right now? Or, because so often I think pastors will do that. Their issues become like the entire congregation's issues. And
you're right. Like we get caught up in what he's doing in our life and we project that onto everybody when it's not that, it's not that way.
Yeah. Like you can be having like a really great time. Have you ever had this? Like you're like really close to the Lord and you're walking in a really happy season or something. And you've got fruit in your life and you're just so stoked about it. Then you go tell somebody that you think they're going to like celebrate with you
Yeah.
but they're not in that season.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
maybe they dump on you. Maybe your own spouse. Like I've had that. They like just
Yeah.
completely dump on you. And you're like, is it even real then? You
Yeah.
know? And it's like, no, it's just, that's where you're at. And
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
right now. And it's okay.
Yeah. And you can't force someone to be there with you.
No.
It's
no.
not their responsibility.
No.
So,
So it's grace and
yeah, that's good. Well, last time we did get together and have our podcast that didn't happen, we talked about homeschool.
yes.
And tell us a little bit about your journey with homeschool, because we know you homeschool. You
Yeah.
homeschooled your 4 kids. Your oldest is graduated,
Yes,
but
that's true. My oldest graduated in 23 and she is 19 now and got a good job and is kind of dabbling with community college a little bit, trying to kind of figure out what she's really wanting to do. But to me, that was just such a great thing, though, to be able to see her go from fully homeschooled by parents who we both dabbled in homeschooling. I did 11th and 12th grade. My husband was actually 3rd grade through 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
So that was already like a door that we could kind of easily walk through.
Yeah.
But seeing that happen, and neither of us having any college education, the two of us, and having friends that had kids that have that are a little ahead of us, I could use those resources that they offered me on how to even walk through like the whole college thing. Was very, I don't know, it was very hopeful, knowing that we were non-traditional. We did not go any state accredited routes or methods, and it was absolute breeze for her to apply and get in.
Oh, wow.
Like, so
That's encouraging.
I know I'm starting with like the most recent thing, but getting started really was because of that background that we had. I had already fully intended to do either public or private, but my oldest has like a pretty like a summer birthday, so I'm thinking, oh, she's so young, she's 5, I don't want her to sit in a school for 7 hours a day, so I'm just gonna try. And we did it for a year, and she just did so great. And I had my second one at the time. She was little, and I thought, we'll do another year, you know. And we did the second year, and it was kind of just like, I'm going to take it 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
I would say that, but in the back of my mind, I still was like, I'm always gonna lean towards homeschooling. And I can remember there'd be a couple of rough years, but that actually, those rough years, it was a blessing that I was homeschooling, because it enabled me to still be a present mom, that we didn't have to rush. Like I can recall like having a rough time with my 3rd child. And if I had to like make sure a lunch was packed and everybody was up at a certain time every single day, oh my gosh. And my oldest, she got to kind of see how, I don't know, it was just, there was good things. I mean, there's pros and cons, right? There was like, sometimes I remember feeling like she had to like comfort me. There was a few times, and I would always make sure, like, I don't want you to think you have to, you know, do that. But we've enjoyed the journey, and years go by very fast. And they've never been identical. We've done co-ops. We've done a la carte classes. We've done do it all by ourselves at home, with a hodgepodge of either curriculum or a library and free online resources. We've kind of tested the waters with a lot of things. And for us, something that I really like and get really excited and pumped about is more like unit studies, because we have different ages, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
fun.
hey, they all need to learn a little of science. Why not and do it all together, or a little history, do it all together. And it doesn't have to look perfect, because they're not going to need they're going to be relearning this stuff later on again.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not trying to memorize this stuff and get it all perfect all the
More
time.
of an introduction to all these things.
It's fun. Homeschooling allows you to kind of try out different things and really get to learn more about your kids, like what their struggles are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then, thankfully, today's age, there's so many resources.
Yeah.
There are tutors. There are, I mean, you got the OutSchool. You got all the Khan Academies free. You got all these resources that are known, you know, by so many that, so there's a lot of help and stuff.
I can't imagine homeschooling like in the 80s.
Right.
When you literally had to build your own curriculum.
Oh, yeah. And you
stuff.
thought you were like a total weirdo.
Yeah. That is true. That's where that stigma came
Yeah.
from.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember thinking I would never homeschool my kids. Like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I couldn't be able to do that. You know, I'm just not a good teacher.
Right.
And I would have to be their everything. And I look at myself now and I'm like, okay, like this, when we homeschooled for the first time last year. And I was like, okay. I remember you telling me, because I came to you early on when I first met you, and Brian and I first got married.
You didn't.
I didn't even have kids. Like, you know,
Right.
we had our older two girls, and they were in school. You know, and I would just kind of look at you and watch you with your kids and kind of pick your brain sometimes. And you would be like, well, you don't have to stick with one curriculum for everything. And I'd be like, what? Like, that seems so unheard of to like mix and match. That's too overwhelming. And after the first year, I was like, okay, I see how you don't have to stick with one thing.
Right.
As long as they're learning, especially in those early years, those basic things, you know, reading, writing, math, and all of that. I mean, those are the core things that they need to learn.
Because that's then where they're going to be able to pick up on things they're interested in and kind of run with it. You know, they can, if you can get them to like reading or like learning, because like some may have dyslexia, and so reading is a big chore. So then you can turn to audiobooks, or I still read to my kids. Like, they still enjoy it. Not, I mean, Lily, but even at like 12 and 13, 15, you're reading like chapter books or things like that. They like it. And or even educational YouTube channels and stuff where they're learning something. So
I think too, like, I feel like I've relied on stuff like that a lot this year. I guess last year was our first official all back into homeschool. So coming into this will be our second year. But it's taken a lot of time for my brain to process, like, hey, you don't have to stick so heavily to this curriculum. Like, you can do other things. And it is like killing me in the inside some days. I'm like, oh, we didn't finish that curriculum, or we're not on track. And then slowly the past few months, my brain has calmed down, and it's been like, they don't even have to finish this 4th grade curriculum this year. They can do 4th grade stuff in 6th grade if they have to. Because my thing now is like, I want them to get it, because I was herded through public school not getting a lot. And I felt like an idiot because I didn't understand. And I was like, I would rather them take their time and be slow at stuff and get it than be a senior in high school and be like, well, what did I just learn? Like, I don't have anything to show for these 12 years.
And sometimes that's a problem with like box curriculum. If you aren't able to think outside the box, you'll get it and put all this pressure on you. And then the pressure comes out in this demand on your kid. And you're like, this lesson is 50 problems. We got to get all 50 problems. And so what I have learned on and off and forever and ever, and I still stick to it, when I do my own, if I buy curriculum, if they get it conceptually or they get the concept down and it's a heavy loaded work, I'm like, I just want you to do this half. You're going to do this half and we're going to move on. Like, we're not going to sit there and do every single.
Well, actually, I switched curriculums halfway through this year because we were using The Good and the Beautiful, which I love. Like, it's so pretty and I loved it. But there was so much fluff, like so many extra things to do. And I would get overwhelmed with it. And I think like Wyatt would, because he's my kid that I suspect has dyslexia. And so we're doing some other like dyslexic things for him when it comes to reading and writing. But he would just get so overwhelmed because it was just so much extra stuff. And like lots of writing. Like The Good and the Beautiful is all about creating creative writers.
I'm seeing that because it was our first year to use it too. And Logan's in it.
And I'm like, that's great if you want to do that. But like, Wyatt does not give a flying crap about writing a story. Like, I have him writing one sentence a day right now because this curriculum that we switched to. And his sentence will be like, my mom's making me write this dumb sentence again. Like, that's his sentences. I'm like, great, William. Like, let's write an actual creative sentence. But he's writing, so whatever. But we switched to this like Amish curriculum that I found called Christian Light.
Okay.
It's super simple. All the fluff is stripped, and it's just the basics.
There's another what he's going to need to know. I was going to bring that up too. So.
And I think it's going well for him and Leona because they just open it and they have their lesson and they can read it themselves, and I'm right there if they need help. And they're like, oh, okay. It's like 6 pages long though, so they're like, oh my gosh, it's so much. I'm like, well, don't do it all. Then, do a page or two. So
that's great. Yeah, that's for real. Like you can get creative with it. And I have a really good friend, and she's helped me keep the blinders on, if you will, from being distracted by all the things that you aren't doing.
yeah.
And she's like, look, you think of this subject, what, like, she gave me an example, like grammar. And we use these books called Easy Grammar. And you can get the Easy Grammar books that are like really big. And so they're supposed to be doing like multiple pages a day. Or you can get the ones that are actual page a day books. But she was reminding me of this. She was like, look, grammar is repetitive.
Yeah.
She said, so if you get a big book and it's third grade grammar book, and at the end of the school year, you've gotten only halfway through it, that's just your continued grammar book for the following year.
Yeah.
She's like, you're not going to be changing. If you go buy the next one up, they're going to rehash and relearn a lot of the exact same material. Might be a little more challenging maybe or whatever, but she gave some ideas for like creative writing prompts, because I have struggling writers too.
Yeah.
And it's like, think of anything, like if they want to design buildings, if they want to design video games. So like if I got my son on a kick, I could even say like, give me a paragraph or 3 or 4 sentences of like your most favorite day that you had this year. And I don't care what it was, or give me a video game design. What would be really cool? Or, just let them kind of lead that.
Right.
And then don't nitpick the grammar at that time, because that you're really focused only on the creative writing side right there. Right. Like, but or let them video themselves.
Yeah.
And then I don't, but that's a good idea. Just even a sentence a day or whatever. There's so many ways to get them to do something.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we're still new, and so we're still figuring out things that are gonna work.
Right.
And I'm so like, I am not a structured human being at all. And so there's days we wake up and I'm like, let's clean the house today instead of doing schoolwork. And I feel like we have more let's not do school days than we do school days. So I'm like, I'm still trying to get myself over that hump. But I have a friend that's like that. This is her first year. And she's always like, I'm just struggling. Like, should I send them back to public? And I'm like, well, you have to remember why you decided to pull them. Like, what was your reasoning for pulling them in the first place? And I was like, because that's what I go back to. Because I'm like, I beat myself up every week. I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing good enough. I'm not a good enough teacher. We don't spend enough time doing these things. And then I'm like, well, you pulled them because you wanted time with them, not, 8 hours away from you every day.
That's really good.
And
Always
so,
go back to the why. And then if you have to, put it somewhere where you're seeing it. Or like, I'm also like you, very not scheduled. And I will say the years that I feel that I had that are the best in my past were, I started kind of planning really early. Like right now I'm already planning for next year, and I don't usually do that at all. I don't. And if I can get it on paper, like I'm like a pencil to paper type person. Me too. And I can put their name, and I can put, here's what I want them to do, and how can we do it. And then even like for lessons or weeks or daily, what does I want it to look like? Do I want a day off? Like, do I want it to be a 4-day week? Yeah. Like, which is what we're planning on next year's a 4-day week.
That's what we do.
And it's like, and if you kind of do that and then have your stuff ready, your resources and materials ready. I even did it one year where I took the books that we were going to use and I tore all the pages out. And they each had a folder with manila folders in it, file folders, and it was literally week by week by week.
Oh, that's nice.
All the papers were there. It's like, so on Monday, you pull that out, and there's all your work that needs to be done. Yeah, so like get it done in a day, or
well, that feels nice because you don't have the book of like, wow,
exactly,
all of this.
exactly.
That's why I like those. So this Christian Light, they come in what's called light units, and it'll just be like lessons 1 through 20 in a tiny little booklet.
Yeah.
And then when you're done with that, you can order the next one, or you can order them all at one time. But we wanted to try it, so I was like, well, if I spend $5 on a light unit and we hate it, that's only $5. Right. Whereas it's $75 for a whole curriculum that we may or may not like, So I did a lot more planning before this year than I ever have in my life. But it's like we haven't followed that plan because we've
Okay.
switched curriculum. So I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing
That makes
anymore.
sense, though. And that's okay because it's
okay.
year one. Yeah, it is fine. Yeah, it is. And sometimes learning life skills are really, those are super valuable.
Yeah.
Like if they're really helping or, or even just watching you guys navigate life. And
I only watch a lot of that.
What would you
Life
say?
be lifing.
What would you say to the parent who really wants to homeschool, but they don't really know the steps to take or how to even go about it, or they're just kind of scared to take that leap?
well, I mean, I'd probably say if you really, really want to, you just have to do it.
just have
like
to do it,
there's
yeah.
not really you can get yourself a little more prepared. There are resources out there. If you are a resource person, then dig into that. I am not a book reader. Like I tried that way. I tried to be like, I'm going to educate myself and read all the books, and my books just like sit there. So I am more to go to Google. Like I am a little bit more go to Google or find free
YouTubed everything.
resources or YouTube everything. And then search your area for anything out there. Like you might not even know until you look. If you've never been in the homeschool world, you might go on Facebook and realize that right down the street there's a group that meets and they meet regularly, or your library has a homeschool day for Q&A.
Yeah.
And you just show up and start asking questions. I know for us, like the center that offers the a la carte classes, at least once a year they try to have an informative, like where you come in and they help you with all of those beginning questions. And yes, it does benefit them because they're trying to get more students,
Right.
but they really are trying to be a resource.
Yeah.
And so many times I've gone to them for questions and they were ready to answer and they got nothing out of it from me. They just helped me,
Yeah.
and that is what I would say, more so the bulk of the homeschool community is you're going to find people that want to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's strongly opinionated. Some are more organized, some are more work oriented, and they pulled their kids because they wanted a heavy workload.
Yeah.
Like you're going to find that variety, but ask around, talk around. You're gonna find your group or whatever. But
That's
you
good.
kind of just have to jump in and know that even if you are like, maybe you have like a trauma situation or like a kid is being ruthlessly bullied or there's a real major, you're just like this is toxic now.
Yeah.
And you just have to pull them. It's okay to pull them and let there be a small season of healing where it's more about keeping a nice regimen at home and not becoming lazy, but it not really be work centered.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to get up, we're going to have like something I've just recently tried to implement, and it's not perfect and it's kind of messy, but I have all the kids have a devotional book. And I know this is of course because we're a Christian family, and so this doesn't maybe work for everybody. It's not, but it's like this is a quiet time in the morning. So it's short for a lot of them, but I'm one at too. So everybody's going to grab their little booklet and you're going to read and know that you can talk to Jesus too at this time. So if you go to your
like
room
that.
or you just sit on the couch
Yeah.
and then sometimes we've done it together collectively. I used to do that. I used
Yeah.
to make them sit around the table and I would read from like a children's one and then we would talk about it and pray. You can ask them for a prayer request. Oftentimes you get like nothing, but
Yeah.
just to try and model that, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is part of
I
our
like
life.
I just recently got my kids a book on how to study the Bible
Oh, okay.
That's good.
because I'm in my 30s and I'm just now learning this stuff. Like I have never known how to study the Bible.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't want them growing up not knowing, what they believe or why and how to study and how to dig. And so we're going through that together. But that was another one of our driving forces for homeschooling because I was like, I want them exposed to what I believe to be true,
Right.
which is the Word of God, and that does not happen in public school. And like
Right.
countless other things happen in public school that I didn't want them around. So
Right.
I guess, I wanted them sheltered, but I also wanted a firm foundation in the Lord built for them because they're not going to get that in school, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, today it's so much more about like your truth and your feelings are are trumping everything else. So even parents are afraid to step on their kids' toes when it comes to how they feel and how they view things. And it's like, I want them to make observations. Like, no, actually, children are naive and malleable and fragile, and they often have opinions, but they're going to be really wrong because they haven't lived enough.
Well, and they're
So
fickle. Like, they're going to go back and forth between what they
Exactly,
feel by the day.
So
I had a conversation with my kids just yesterday about that. They brought something up that some friends of theirs had said, and Wyatt, perked up, and he was like, "Well, that's not what the Bible says about that." And so I told him, I was like, I'm proud of you for standing up. I was like, but we have to approach some things a little differently. I said, because if they're not saved, if they don't know Jesus, you can't just tell them like, hey, that's wrong, because they're not going to accept that. Like, our job is just to love them and let them know. You can let them know where you stand. And I was like, but you can't just flat out tell them, like, you can't do that, because they're not going to understand why. And so we're having to like navigate, because he's almost 12 now. And so it's hard having to navigate and teach kids how to deal with situations that I don't even fully know how I would deal with them myself.
Right.
So I'm like, I guess this whole studying the Bible together thing is going to be a good thing. We can all learn together.
Yeah.
Which is another beautiful thing about homeschool, is learning together.
Oh yeah. Trust me, that definitely happens. You're like relearning algebra and relearning biology, like all the things. You're like,
grade
what?
math.
Yeah, no, for real.
I'm like, wait a second, what?
Last year, Wyatt had a paper, and he asked me for help, and I came over there and I was like, what the crap is this? I know. I had to Google it and like redo the problem like 4 or 5 times before it clicked in my brain.
Like,
and you know what it was? Borrowing from, like, he was doing like 3 million
A subtraction
minus
problem?
500,642.
Honestly,
and I was like, what do you do with all
trip.
these zeros? Like, why? I didn't know what to do. And he was like, well, Mom, you just do this and all these. And I was like, what? I had to redo the problem 5 times. And then my brain was like, you got it.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just relearn
ridiculous.
with them. And the teacher guides are great
Yeah.
for that. And that was the other thing, though, when you take the classes at a place like where we do, oftentimes they'll say, the student's going to need this book, and they come to class. And so but I didn't buy the teacher guide because maybe it wasn't a requirement. And then when they have questions, you're
like, whoops.
Oh, no. So I need that teacher guide. And because my son, he is 12, he'll be 13 in May, he's in 7th grade, and that 7th grade math is no joke.
Oh my gosh.
He is full on, and it is full on like trying to prep him for the 8th grade, which is technically the pre-algebra stuff. So oftentimes what we do is I have a little dry erase board, and we'll write the math problem down, because this is all talking about math, and I will just be like, okay, first step. Because he wants to try and solve everything just in his head. I'm like, this is not solvable just in your head.
Write it down.
You have to break this down into parts. And then it'll even be complex. Like, it reads the math problem and it says, now write it out as a problem. So it's all a word problem. But now, and I'm like, listen for the clue words. But it's, I'm excited because next year we're going to switch. And we're going to use another math that's even more basic.
Oh, nice.
And there's so many curriculum out there. If you've got strong math kids, it's like, oh, go this route.
Yeah.
And if you don't, go this route. Yeah. So I try to read the room with them a lot and be like, okay, we're gonna go this other easier route.
I will say too, like, that first year, you're really learning your kids, because you've spent so much time without them if they're in public school. And so you are learning like what their strong points are and what their weaknesses are. And so right now I'm all over the place, because Wyatt is a terrible reader writer, but he flies through math. Like, if he doesn't get it, he watches a video until he gets it, and then he's good.
So Leona, it's fun to him.
Leona likes reading and writing. Her spelling is atrocious. And math makes her cry. Like, the minute she is trying to do she just gets so frustrated. And then Hazel is just like, like, she doesn't care about anything right now. And then Evelyn is like picking things up so fast. She's 5 or just turned 6, and she picks things up so fast. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe the Lord was gracious with her. Like, she was my easiest baby. Maybe she's gonna be my easiest learner. Like, maybe I'll
I
have
always
some.
felt that way too.
So
Well, you get to see what they really enjoy and like what they light up doing.
yeah,
And it is true because if they don't feel like there's a purpose behind it, then they are going to have trouble doing it.
And why am I doing this?
that's the kind of person I was. That's the learner I was. And so when I would be doing algebra, you just have all these problems that you're solving for X or Y. And I was like, but why? Like, there's no point to this. What do I need this for?
Yes.
And my brain could never comprehend it.
It's like there needs to be a resource out there that shows here's how it's used. Something that my kids seem to like more than doing regular math was anytime we would find a financial book. So it was like they were learning about budgeting.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you
That's
save
interesting.
for a trip, or plan your groceries and your monthly bills, and writing not checks but doing the
Right.
bank stuff and,
Yeah.
and everything. But I think the same with writing too. The other, I know this is kind of off topic, but my friend that's helping me right now, she was like, you can even do like things where to make writing fun, be like, okay, pick a person, it could be imaginary or real, and I want you to like write a complaint letter to them, like, or I want you to write a review on a restaurant, like,
Oh, that's
or a
fun.
hotel or something.
Yeah.
Like, let them pretend like they're critiquing
Yeah.
something. And there are books for grammar. There is one called Editor in Chief that is fun when they're older because they're having to grade other students' work.
Oh, that's
and,
fun.
and not write
Yeah.
anything, So
Yeah.
they like there's other
That's
creative
fun.
methods out there for that stuff. But
That's the cool thing about it. There's
It's
literally like
endless.
the possibilities are endless. So
yeah,
And you get to see kind of more, because if you are sticking with one curriculum and then you're seeing they're kind of weak in one area, you can get more things to kind of like help with that certain thing.
right.
Because I know with Nora, we have to do that with some of the things
Yeah.
that, you just, you're learning your kids and you're,
And you can take longer. Like
Yeah.
you said, you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
we didn't get through it. It's okay.
and
there's
we're just we're on the slow ship right now. We're just like puttering around and just
The good news is, and I said this to my friend, when Peyton and Kendall and Lily, because they're all similar in age, and they had done the whole private school, and I did a lot of comparisons at those times. I fought it. I didn't stay stuck in it, but I had like family, like not y'all and not Brian or anybody,
Yeah.
like would point things out, and I'd be like, oh nope, that's we're staying here. This is what we chose. We're doing this, anyways. And now I'm like, okay, they've both gone to the same school. They both got jobs. I'm talking about Peyton and mine. Like, I'm seeing that once adulthood comes into play and the rubber meets the road and they actually have to start driving, they have to go get a job somewhere and have to learn people skills.
yes.
Everything starts to even out a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, not that you're trying to create robots and even adult,
right,
but like
functionality wise,
like the whole thing of becoming an adult, like
Right.
that is inevitable and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So just make good adults. Like,
Yeah.
get your
Yeah.
kids
that's
to
the
a
goal.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to make good adults.
Yeah, be a contributing factor to society, but also love Jesus, know how to think really good and have critical thinking skills, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
That's
That's
the
my
most
biggest thing.
important
I
part.
told my dad one time because we were talking about homeschool and why and all these what ifs and stuff. And I told my dad, I said, honestly, my goal is to get them to heaven, not
that's-
college.
That's definitely the ultimate.
And not everybody's going to feel that way because, like you said, we're a Christian family as well, and so not everybody's there. But you have to choose those things that are important to you if you're going to homeschool. And for us, like, I would rather them know Jesus and know why they believe what they believe if they choose to believe it. Because I told
Right.
them the other day, I said, there's going to come a point in your life where you're going to choose to believe this or not. And I said, but you guys will make that decision for yourselves one day. And I don't know. All I can do is cultivate that love for studying the word and that love for Jesus right now, and hope for the best. But that's the goal. Heaven, not Harvard.
That could be the name of your homeschool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Welcome to Heaven,
Not
not
Harvard.
Harvard Academy.
Yeah, Harvard needs a little bit more heaven.
Yeah. Funny though, there was a statistic, I think, that I don't even remember the percentage, but more homeschoolers make it into Ivy League colleges than don't.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And probably finish.
Yeah.
I'm not trying.
I think
I'm
that
not
was the
trying to be
thing,
a snooty about
No.
that.
No, but I just find it
sometimes-
very interesting.
The statistics
Yeah.
on that.
because it, like, well, if they don't, you can look at the scholarship stuff too, right? Like kids who maybe are get in just because a parent paid or because they got a little bit of free money. College students that go in excited about the freedoms that they're going to have, or the party scene, or just the friend groups, or all of the stuff that really high school kind of set them up for
Right.
in reality, don't tend to finish or don't do anything with what they finish
Yeah.
getting. And I'm not here to debate or
Right.
even bring up statistics or anything. It's kind of like where we brought college into our kids as an option is more of like, we are not pushing it on you. It's completely going to be your option when you get there. And we just hope that you really think about it and make a decision that makes sense. Don't do it just because you feel pressured by
Right.
anybody or any society thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna tag on too to not wanting to be snooty. Like I always
Okay.
am worried about that. Like, do people think I'm snooty because I homeschool? But then I'm
yeah.
like, well, it goes both ways, and
I was talking to a friend who is a teacher, and she was telling me that they're going to a church, and she's like, most of the people in that church, they homeschool. And so she kind of got the other,
oh, she's on
Like-
the flip side. Yeah.
like, why don't you homeschool your kids kind of feeling,
Okay.
And she's like, that could be just me, but that's the kind
I
of
think
vibe
maybe
I'm
that's
feeling.
a lot of it. Maybe it is just like our internal, like we take things a certain way,
Right.
Yeah.
when they're not. So like,
Well, and we grew up, like for us that do homeschool, we grew up feeling like, you don't homeschool your kids. You got to send them to public school.
Yeah.
You got to send them to, at least that's how I thought it was supposed to be,
Yeah.
And, but I think it goes whichever way.
yeah.
the beautiful thing about adulthood is you
do-
make your own choices.
yeah.
Like
Do
do what you
what
want with
you
your own
feel
kids,
that's
your own
right.
family.
Is right for your
And
family.
it's there if it's a needed resource. And
Yeah.
so I'm thankful for it. I think that, as a whole, we can see that there's always going to be missing gaps. So if
Oh,
you
yeah.
choose to go one way or the other, it both sides, whether school, like public, private, home, it's going to take intentionality on our
Yeah.
part to pour in. Like, so
Yeah.
I had already, when I was much younger, thought, if I go this route of public school, I would love to help out, like do the whole PTA
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
or be really an involved
I
parent.
did that for a little bit.
Okay, because then it's like then you feel like you know a little bit more.
Yeah.
You're in there at maybe meetings and you're
Yeah.
hearing what's going on, and no matter which path you take, though, exactly what you said, you can pour into your kids. And help train them or teach them and guide them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they have to make the faith or the choices are
Yeah.
going to fall in them, so
Yeah. Well, you did write a book about,
yes.
was this book, tell us a little bit about it.
It was literally, it came from just a place of having been asked so many questions like, how do your kids get socialized? Which is always the big one.
Yeah, that's the big one.
It's like,
We didn't even touch on
I
that
know, and I
much.
just want to go. Anyways, I'm not going to go. But like when you work, like, are we sitting around just like talking to people like all day, every day,
Right.
or is life all about only working with a peer like that's your age? It's like, I feel like in homeschool you get a variety of ages, a variety of anything. So, but I wrote the book for answering a few of those little questions, but it was more for overcoming the fear of beginning. So kind of back to
Yeah.
that question. And it's more of like guided, it has like chapters and information to read, but it's guided like meditations and prayers and thought points, and then it opens spaces for you to process it out on. So it's like, it starts off right away talking about the importance of, if you're married and you want to homeschool, make sure your spouse does too, or at least is an agreement, like, yeah, we'll give it a shot and we can see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then works through a few other things that usually are doubts, insecurities, and questions that come up, and how you can debunk them sometimes, or conquer them,
Yeah.
or walk through it,
Yeah.
and it's very, very short. And
I think last time we laughed about the pamphlet.
Yeah, it is literally like a pamphlet. And when I look at it, I'm like, I wrote this and I haven't even read it from cover to cover.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, I stared at it as I wrote it. And
Yeah.
Well, what's it called?
Yeah.
it is the, oh my gosh, I have brought it.
I know
It's in
you
the
brought it
kitchen.
last time too. And
I did. I brought one.
Do you want me to go grab it?
Yeah.
we can take a picture of it too and post it.
Yeah, we can do that. It's on the counter by my purse. Sorry. I should have grabbed it, but I didn't know if we were going to like bring it up or not. And I was considering about like, I don't know if you guys get like comments or anything on your videos,
Sometimes.
but if you get like random people like you don't know, but they're like interested, I would be so willing to like at least mail like one free one.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
But here it is: From Desire to Decision: Overcoming the Fears of Beginning Your Homeschool Journey. And you can look it up on Amazon.
Okay, good.
With my name, Nicole Sherrick, and it looks just like that.
And we can post a link in our show notes and post a picture of it on Instagram with the link and everything. So
yeah, and it is a very easy read, and it has like, I don't know, it's just fun. I wrote it to be fun. Like, so that somebody read it and would just be like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I can at least try it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to break my kids.
Right.
Because oftentimes you could pull your kid for a whole year and they could go probably right back in.
That's what I always told my kids. I was like, if we get to a point where y'all hate being home and you really just want to go to public school, we can do that. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to public school. You know, I just, for me, I really felt like the Lord wanted me to do it. It was, I was very convicted at a certain point over some things. Anyways,
Well,
that's
it definitely
another.
grows us.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's for sure.
really, if you allow it to be, it's a tool that will grow and mature you and your kids.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we'll have to have you on again.
Yeah.
So
think
that we
there's
can
so
dive
many-
way deeper into a lot of different homeschool topics because we kind of half of this episode we were just chit chatting about dinosaurs, but
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, it was
On
so
our
much fun.
Second
good.
time to record this.
We
but
did it.
It was
This
different.
is gonna be the winner.
And this is the winner.
But yeah,
I think it's
we'll
gonna
have
be
you
good.
on again. We can talk homeschool. We can talk motherhood. We can talk.
all the things.
Oh yeah,
all
all
of
the
it.
things.
But
Yeah.
we love you.
I love being here, and I love y'all.
I don't love y'all, but I love being here.
I love being here. I love being here.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note, thank you again, and we will see you guys at the next get together.